Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the INFOWARS Nightly News. I'm your host, Aaron Dykes. Today is Wednesday, August 29th, 2012.
Tonight on the INFOWARS Nightly News, Aaron Dykes speaks with activist Derek Rose about his recent run-in with the TSA in Tampa. Plus, MeR1.com's Kalen Ackerman talks about his anti-globalist artwork. Then, the exploitation of Hurricane Isaac, all in the name of expanding the police state. All that and more coming up on the INFOWARS Nightly News.
We have breaking news tonight as Hurricane Isaac, which has now been downgraded to a tropical storm, has indeed caused massive flooding in Louisiana, not in the concentrated New Orleans area, but about an hour or so outside of that area in the Plaquemines Parish. We've been in touch with our source, Charles, in Louisiana, and we have a number of updated news items for you. They are planning to evacuate the area, and we've been told that the 8-foot levee has definitely been overwhelmed by water, and our reports from Charles in Louisiana indicate the levee itself may have broken, and furthermore, the authorities are considering breaching the levee on purpose to try to divert the water and end the flooding that is going on in that area. Now, apparently, this levee was never improved after Hurricane Katrina because it was so far outside of the main New Orleans area, thus it never got the improvements, but it is certainly taking a serious blow now. Now, our source in New Orleans, in the New Orleans area, that is still in the midst of that hurricane/tropical storm. That's going to be ongoing for another 18 to 24 hours. So we're going to get further updates from Charles in Louisiana if he still has phone service. They had difficulty getting that phone service earlier. They've been trying to reach our office and give us details about the dusk curfew that has been set, not only in the Plaquemines Parish area, not only in New Orleans, but all the way up to the Baton Rouge area, which is well north into the heart of Louisiana, and basically all the areas in between. And police in particular have been emphasizing in their media reports that they're going to keep law and order. Now, we know what happened last time. There was gun confiscation, even in the areas that weren't flooded, and we really hope that's not what they have in mind again. However, this is another situation where they're using any emergency pretext at all to roll in National Guard and other troops. They're going to blur the line once again of Posse Comitatus until everyone is acclimated to this occupation inside our country, the former Republic of the United States. Despite the fact that Isaac is a Category 1 hurricane, Kurt Nimmo writes in his article, New Orleans Mayor Mitch Landrieu said the city had dodged a bullet and the Army National Guard had dispatched thousands of troops to Louisiana. Now, Governor Bobby Jindal has basically earmarked 8,000 troops for a 180-day period, and they have another 35,000 troops and plenty of aircraft standing by to occupy that zone. And again, Charles in Louisiana went down during Hurricane Katrina back in 2005 as a volunteer, as did so many other good people in that community. They've been told this time, you will stay in your homes, you will be arrested if you go out after dusk because there's a curfew blanketing all of the Louisiana area. They've been told they don't want ordinary volunteers, they just want police and military and other so-called officials. Now, what's disgusting here is how communities used to help each other when there was natural disasters. But now we have learned to accept the big federal government-driven control, even though they've only proven time and time again they bungle the situation, they respond late, and they cause people to be hurt, killed, robbed from, stealed. They're not helping. They're preventing people from helping, again, by design. And once again, they did confiscate guns in Hurricane Katrina. So we're going to sound the alarm here again, not to confiscate the guns. Troops, whether you're National Guard or other divisions, do not obey orders to confiscate America's weapons, which is protected under the Second Amendment of the Bill of Rights. Of course, the Oath Keepers have been trying to get that message out to as many military personnel as possible, and we hope they hear this call as well. But once again, we have this breaking news that they are preparing to evacuate in that New Orleans area. And I would just add, too, that Charles in Louisiana, I just got off the phone with him a few minutes ago, pointed out that they were beginning to lock down the city issue the curfew orders and tell people not to even go out on the streets. There's no gas, there's no food available. All this happened when there wasn't even rain, before there was ever strong winds. This was a pre-planned event, so we're going to see how it plays out, but they have certainly worked against the best interests of the American people before. Now we will turn to the RNC convention underway in Tampa, Florida, the big circus, the big show to anoint Mitt Romney and have this staged election against Barack Obama, his controlled opposition. Now, Ron Paul shouldn't have been a story in this mix in particular because they worked so hard to censor him and shut him out of the process leading up to this convention. And yet here he is, several big stories, the biggest of which is that the TSA decided to harass Ron Paul and his wife and his aides as they left Tampa yesterday in their private plane. Now, they were at the small airport of Clearwater, Florida, right outside Tampa in the area, and they were told that no one would be allowed to leave until there was an extensive search of all their credentials and identifications, but then also of the plane itself, which they explicitly searched for explosives. Why? Because those TSA agents were there to harass Ron Paul and directly made the insinuation that his plane could be used as an explosive missile device to attack Mitt Romney. Oh, this really happened. Here it is on the Lou Rockwell blog. Kurt Nemo, of course, has the story on the top of INFOWARS. TSA harasses Ron Paul and his wife in Florida. But here's this detail. One of the pilots noted that the plane, full of aviation fuel, was already a bomb, as the several TSA agents indicated that they had to check this plane specifically for explosives because Mitt Romney was in the area. This is Ron Paul, who was accused by many critics for not even attacking Mitt Romney through his words and rhetoric enough, and now here he is being manhandled by the TSA on the pretext that he would be somehow a physical threat in his private plane against Mitt Romney and their little phony parade at the RNC. Well, this all ended when they insisted on patting down his wife, Carol, who has a pacemaker. When she refused, the TSA agents began to get indignant, but one of their aides began filming the incident. They got nervous and ended it quickly. This is the disgraceful incident serving as a vicious parting shot. Those are the words of Kurt, apropos from the establishment, who have once again worked time and again to shut out Ron Paul's supporters and delegates, to silence Ron Paul in media coverage, and make sure he was not seen as a viable, credible candidate within the Republican Party's little game for establishment nomination. Then again, on the convention floor yesterday, a hot mic caught further evidence of the establishment's ongoing efforts to censor Ron Paul. Paul Joseph Watson's story, Hot Mic catches Republican praising censorship of Ron Paul. And it was during the roll call at the convention yesterday, the attendee was caught on a hot mic praising the fact that they had done a good job in blacking out Ron Paul when the mic apparently accidentally cut out the listing of Ron Paul's delegates after Mitt Romney's. Those delegates were reread and entered into the official record, but the point being you had key officials who were nearby microphones or directly on microphones being part of that cover-up openly. The quote was, "Well done. Whoever controlled the microphone did a great job." There's no identification of that RNC individual. Again, this is the same RNC establishment, Republican Party, GOP establishment, who told us that if Ron Paul even won the Iowa caucus, it would ruin Iowa's reputation and hurt the Republican Party. That was all just to try to tell people you're not allowed to choose Ron Paul. Of course, he later won those delegates, but we're getting to the delegate situation as well as they rewrote those rules. But first, let's take a look at the actual video of them praising the fact that Ron Paul's name had been censored out on the floor microphone.
3 votes for Ron.
Okay.
Well done. Whoever controlled the microphone did a great job.
Could I please have the state of Georgia repeat your vote count?
Yes, you can, Madam Secretary. 72 delegate votes for Mitt Romney. We have 3 for Ron Paul and 1 undecided.
oh, whoever controlled this sham of an election sure did a good job. Well, they had a lot of hands making light work in that effort. Now, you can imagine how much work must have gone on behind the scenes to make sure that all the threats from Ron Paul delegates of making a stink, of making their voices heard, of trying to nominate him from the floor wouldn't happen, so Romney could have this graceful parade celebrating the general election larger sham. Now, part of that was the changing of the GOP rules. Joe Wolverton at New American has the story. RNC disenfranchises Paul delegates, rigs the rules to nominate Romney, and so they've changed some of their technical memorandum rules, which disbarred a number of Ron Paul's delegates, even though he had nowhere near the number at this point in time to get the delegation. In particular, 10 of Maine's 24 delegates were locked out of the process. You recall some of the shenanigans that went on with the Maine vote as well, I'm sure, and they were thus prevented from voting for Ron Paul from the floor. In protest, those Maine delegates walked out of the Tampa Bay Times Forum, leaving them, in essence, to just play their predetermined winner game. And you can imagine that happens. And this is, once again, reason why political parties were always warned about by our founding fathers. They're not part of our constitutional process. They're not part of American laws. They make their own internal rules, so it's no surprise to see them rigging the game so that Romney can look like the clear winner with no real competition. Now, on the other hand, there's been a big influence from the grassroots people, from the constitutional voices. The system has heard that message. They've locked you out of the official dog and pony show, but we're still affecting the national debate, not only through Ron Paul, but through hundreds and hundreds of important issues. So just keep up your work at a local level. I don't think we're going to get the answer through the national presidential election political process anyway. In other news, a congressman has called for more research into the safety of airport X-ray scanners, of the naked body scanners, over the radiation issue. It's the Long Island Congressman Steve Israel, and he has indeed made his voice heard. He says, I have a high regard for the TSA, but I also know when government says, trust us, and we don't have to open this up to more scrutiny, that's exactly when you should open it up to more scrutiny. That's what he told WCBS 880 Long Island Bureau Chief, and went on to make other comments. Certainly, this is a good move. I don't know about praising TSA as being otherwise upstanding. They're pretty much full of scandal from bottom to top. They should start firing from the top, including the Homeland Security Big Sis chief and the umbrella organization over it. But at least it's good that they're going to be looking into these body scanners. They've already had cancer clusters where they first installed the body scanners at Boston Logan. A number of those TSA employees are being hurt and harmed. And as much as this is harmful to not only our civil liberties, but the actual lives and bodies of frequent travelers, you got to imagine this probably affects TSA workers who are there 8 hours a day and have to go through that security as well, even more. But look at this Orwellian point in time we've reached. Yes, we need to focus on the body scanners, but he says we do have an obligation to make sure that our security is safe and that people know it's safe. That's what Rep. Israel said in his comments today. But how Orwellian is that? Not only Benjamin Franklin's prescient advice that giving up essential liberty for the guise of security will not bring you security, now the security